Hi, Miriam. Let's take a look at your new essays about travel. Here's what you wrote. Nowadays, traveling plays an important role in our society. Even though traveling near or far brings many advantages, the disadvantages should not be forgotten. Therefore, I will outlay both sides of the medal. I'm not sure what you're trying to say here in this essay. Okay, so fine, although obviously you've got those spelling mistakes. I'm not really sure why. I think it's something with your computer or something you mentioned in your email. I wasn't really crazy about this sentence. First of all, I wasn't really super thrilled with the word outlay. It's just not really natural, and I have no idea what you mean by metal. What you could just say instead is this essay will discuss both the pros and cons of travel with arguments and, or rather, with evidence and support for both arguments. That would have been fine. It's not a bad idea to kind of have one of these in the back of your head, like a sort of set expression for the different essay types, much like um, you've probably seen like in the template, you can take some of these expressions and just kind of have them as like a go-to. So you don't have to spend too much time thinking about what goes in your introduction. All right, so let's move on. There are a lot of reasons for traveling, which is underlined by a rising number of travelers. I'm not really sure what that means. The reasons are underlined. I don't even think underline is the word you really want. Um, And do the rising number of travelers, are they related to the reasons for traveling? So I understand what you're trying to do here, although I'm not really entirely convinced of the connection. So that's a sentence I would probably change. How about this? There are a lot of advantages to traveling, which is maybe underlined or underscored by the rising number of travelers. I think that's a better idea rather than talking about the reasons. Numerous causes for this trend can be named. Now, you can't do this. You have to put a comma here and continue your sentence. One of which is the urge of people to broaden their horizons. S. If one travels, 1L, to a foreign country, he, she gets the chance to talk to the country's inhabitants and learn about different points of view, thus diving into a new culture. By doing so, people learn to understand difference, therefore become more tolerant. Another pro for traveling is not to be forgotten, the fact that travelers bring money to the country. A lot of places do not have many other options of income. People living in these areas depend on tourism. The income through, please don't do this in essays, it's THROUG. Wait, THROUGH, there we go. Restaurants and hotels is just one factor to be named. Okay. Miriam, I like your ideas. I thought you did a nice job, but there's one thing that I want you to try to improve in your next set of essays. I want the flow of your ideas to be a little better, a little stronger. Let me show you what I mean. Travelers bring money to the country. A lot of places do not have many other options of income. People living in these areas depend on tourism. The income through restaurants and hotels is just one factor to be named. So I understand how these ideas link together, but I'd like them also lexically to link together. Okay. So let me see if just like off the top of my head, I can come up with maybe a suggestion or two on how you could do this. So another pro for traveling is not to be forgotten. The fact that travelers bring money to the country. This is critical because a lot of places do not have many other options of income. And as a result, people living in these areas depend on tourism. Okay? Then you could say, therefore, the income through restaurants and hotels, as well as the benefits to people's mindset, are just some of the positives regarding travel. Okay, does that make sense? So I think you that should give you an idea of the kinds of links that I want you to make. I also want a sentence that kind of summarizes everything you said. It's more or less just a mirror of the first sentence, but I think that would make your paragraphs a lot stronger and feel a lot more cohesive. Now, just looking at this, I can tell you I'm a little concerned about this paragraph because it's kind of short. It's at least it's like just over half of the other paragraph. So, and it looks like it's a big difference. So, I'm not saying you have to be obsessive, but try to make the paragraphs roughly equal in length, okay? Because it's going to look like you talked about one side much more than you did the other. Let's see what you wrote. However, one important minus, this is awkward, minus point of traveling. It's awkward. We would say differently, we would say, however, one important drawback of travel has to be mentioned. An increasing number of tourists travel by plane. This is due to the fact that airplane tickets are getting cheaper and cheaper. In consequence, nature suffers by the increasing CO2 emission. I believe that nowadays there should not be any argument that outweighs the argument against the destruction of nature. Therefore, traveling in a more ecological alternative is imperative. All right, could you have said something else? So, in this previous paragraph, you had two drawbacks, right? I'm sorry, you had two positives. You had the broadening of our horizons and also the financial positives. Well, here, couldn't you have come up with another minus as well? Maybe you could have talked about the fact that rather than just destroying the environment, travel also really has an effect on the area and its inhabitants in a negative way. So think about places like Venice or places like Santorini that have become overrun by tourists, and they no longer have the character or appearance that once drew tourists to those places. Instead, they're overrun by souvenir shops and advertisements aimed at tourists. And so, in a way, they've kind of lost the thing that made them so appealing in the beginning. So, this is something you could have talked about as well as a negative. Okay, and there are many more, but I just want to give you an idea. So, in conclusion, traveling benefits the traveler, the country, and can lead to a more tolerant world. However, this should not happen at the expense, ENSE, of nature. Okay, I like your conclusion. It's brief, it's to the point, and you kind of summarize nicely. I don't know what's going on with your typing there. I don't know what's happening here. Let's take a look now at this movie preferences bar chart. The graph demonstrates which kind of movie is preferred by young adults, distinguished between men and women around the world. Okay, fine. The chart clearly shows that comedy is the most preferred movie genre, irrespective of gender, I would have said, with 145 male and 137 female watchers. This similarity in preference can also be seen when it comes to animation or horror movies. However, roughly about half as many people prefer these two kinds of movies compared to comedy, thus forming the tail light when it comes to movie choices. It's an interesting expression. I don't know if we really use that in English. So I probably would not have said it here. It certainly doesn't feel like very task one specific language. Let's see. Roughly half as many people prefer these two kinds of movies compared to comedy. Full stop. I would have stopped it there. Furthermore, there was one significant difference in preference between men and women. Almost twice as many men liked action movies compared to women, with 137 to 82. The contrary is proven for romantic movie preference. It is obvious that women like this kind of genre much more than men do. The figures substantiate this fact with 116 female votes compared to 31 male votes. Last but not least, drama movies also show a slight preference in female watchers with 23 more votes. Good. In conclusion, it can be stated that comedy is preferred the most and also equally often among young men and women worldwide. Here you should have left this one sentence, not new sentence for whereas. Whereas romantic and action movies present clear gender-related preferences. All right, this is great. I really like this. You know, it's funny. I typically recommend that students do this a particular way. You didn't do it the way that I usually recommend, but I thought the way you did it was really quite successful. And so I like that. I like seeing that there are other ways of doing this. For me, I probably would have talked about the men first in one paragraph, and then I would have had another paragraph for the women. You didn't do that. You decided to focus on what was similar and what was different, and it worked for you. And I thought that some of the expressions you used to show difference, I thought that that was very effective. Maybe one thing you could have done is you could have separated this into smaller paragraphs. So you could have had a paragraph talking about which figures were similar. Okay, so in other words, have a paragraph with animation, comedy, and horror, and then have a different paragraph with action, drama, and romantic movies. That might have worked, but it's a small difference because task one doesn't really pay a lot of attention to paragraphing. It's only when you are looking at maybe like a band 8 and higher that they care. Sometimes a band 7, but I think your paragraph one was okay. It just would have been even more effective if you'd had like 2. That's how I would have done it. All right, so keep at it. I know you're working hard. I know time is limited for you. You've got a lot of stuff going on. See if you can kind of study some of the suggestions in this video, apply them. I know you're trying. All right, so we'll meet back here with your next set. Looking forward to it, and good luck.